husband Matt accepted their first child, Drew. Before adopting Drew, Fallon and her husband first tried adopting a baby girl. The process did not go as planned. As they traveled to Florida to adopt their baby girl, the biological mother had decided to keep the child. Adoption from foster care can begin from the child previously being abused, medical purposes, or lack of guardianship. One worry some adopted families adopting through foster care have is the biological family being able to take custody of that child back. If a family adopts a child, the biological family has the right to take custody. Families that have the desire to adopt but not being able to afford it can check the process of adoption through foster care. It is much cheaper than international and domestic adoption. Whether adopting from foster care or just fostering a child, it can make a difference. When deciding on whether to adopt or not, families need to take into consideration children with special needs. A child with special needs will require more attention, whether that be love or medical needs.
In our home, everyone is a little unique, so home is where you're not different, where you're not unique. It's just home.
Special needs children work well around structure, environments, and attention. Families should realize just because a child with special needs doesn't make loving them any harder. Open and closed adoption also plays a major role in the adoption process.
Is it a closed or open adoption?
It is an open adoption, and within that there's varying degrees, like some birth parents request like contacts through like either FaceTime or things like through letters, pictures, email, things like that. Ours is open, so she knows our first names and that we live in Kentucky, and we have met her face to face a couple times. But she doesn't have like any other contact information. So if she ever wants pictures of our child, she contacts like our lawyer, and then we submit anything through her. So there's no direct line of communication, but she does have access to pictures, or if she has any other questions. Like,
Is she allowed to meet the child again?
she is allowed to, well, let me back up. She can request if she would like to have contact with them, but as of the 48 hours when she terminated her parental rights, we have that decision-making ability if we want him to have communication with her. And then, I mean, honestly, when he turns 18, he can do whatever he chooses to do at that point.
With an adoption being open, it can allow the biological family to come into communication with the child, whether it be in person or over the phone. A closed adoption is when the biological family cannot come in contact with the child unless the adopted family approves. When deciding on adoption, families also need to think about international or domestic adoption.
International adoption, there are many, many options, but you are dealing with other countries. So you have to get approval from the United States, and then you also have to have approval from that particular country.
The choice between international or domestic adoption is one large factor throughout the adoption process. For families looking at international adoption, need to remember that the expenses are much more because of travel, medical requirements, and other necessities. Domestic adoption would still require travel, just not as far as international.
Domestic adoption is really an adoption that takes place in the United States, but the adoption through the state, many times you have to do a foster to adopt process, not always, but you have to kind of go through some state assigned procedures.
Domestic adoption is more functionable for adopted families because the adoption will be within a closer distance. In some cases, when internationally adopting, you may not be able to adopt a newborn. Whatever the family chooses, it is putting a child in a healthier environment. To families considering adoption, remember when expanding a family there are many things to factor in, such as international or domestic adoption, whether the adoption will be open or closed, consider the thought of adopting from foster care, and if adopting a child with special needs is possible. A loving and safe home is a necessity adopted children need. When adopting it takes patience and compassion. Adopting a child is a humbling way to welcome a new member to the family.